Good afternoon, and welcome to the Thursday, February 13th meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. I'm Cynette Cavaliere, your chair of this committee. Normally, at this point in time, I would actually ask everybody to introduce themselves, but I want to pause for just a second and introduce John Bennett, who is our newest member. So, John, if you could say hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Good. And now, based on that, then I'll go ahead and have Steve, you start, and we'll go the rest of the way around.
Hi, good evening. Stephen Daly, EECC member.
Cheremeteff, EECC member.
Pat Schichler, member.
Rygg Green, committee member.
Katie Rygg, committee member.
Matt Prinzing, junior planner, town staff liaison.
Sarah Waterman, sustainability engineer, staff liaison.
Kevin Berry, town board liaison.
Okay, thank you. First item is the review and approval of the minutes of the January 9th meeting. May I have a motion for approval?
I'll motion, I read them, it's good.
Okay.
I'll
Is there a
second.
Okay, thank you. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
The Renewable Energy Systems Law there was a reference that there's a waiting time until it could go into effect, and I was just wondering if it is in effect at this point.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I have no other comments about that.
And I can share more information during the meeting.
When will it go into the E-code?
Let's pause and get the vote for the minutes,
Sorry.
please.
Yeah.
Daly,
Aye.
Bennett,
Aye.
Cheremeteff,
Aye.
Schichler,
Aye.
Cavaliere,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Rygg.
Aye.
Okay. So you will talk about that a bit later.
I'll address it at an appropriate point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is the standing report for the Monroe County Environmental Management Council from the January meeting. And if you recall, the meeting was at the same time as this meeting. So we sent a representative from the town to the meeting. The report from that has been distributed to you. So I don't know, Matt, if you have any additional comments from her with Jenny, was that?
Amy.
Amy,
Yeah,
okay, from Amy.
So the junior engineer, Amy Owens, went in Cynette's stead and provided some notes, and then we also combined that with the meeting minutes. They also provided us with the organics management plan presentation that was provided at that meeting. I won't be appending the entire presentation to the minutes, our minutes, I should say, but as the standard will be, we'll have the report itself added. But that presentation is available for all the members to view on the Google Drive.
And Amy's notes also address that presentation.
Right.
So there are notes based on that.
Yeah.
And then the next meeting that I'll be attending will be on next Wednesday, February 19th.
And the topic for that is environmentally friendly heating options.
Can I ask a question about?
Sure.
The county has a request that people weigh in on their draft organics management plan. Does the town weigh in on that? Could we weigh in on that?
I'll have to double check. The town has had staff weigh in on behalf of the town. I think probably what would benefit the county more than having us as a group do it is actually if each individual member as a resident weighs in, just because I think that'll be more effective. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If this committee feels like there's a benefit to putting together a letter that we can provide the county in support maybe of the plan, addressing any specific items, that's something that I would say this committee could do, but that would be separate from the survey. Does that difference make sense?
So Matt has called up the page, and it does look like there is a resident survey
Yes, so there's the business survey. So if you run a business within Monroe County, you would take that one, the residential survey, a farmer survey, and then there's the scoping plan feedback form. So I wouldn't say, it doesn't appear that there is like a municipal survey response, but I
Right,
would
except that last piece, right? Because we're stakeholders in Monroe County.
Yeah, I guess that's worth looking into to see.
So from when I spoke with the sustainability coordinator for the county, she wanted us to just fill out the business section, like the survey. So that's what we did. Again, I think as individual residents, there is a benefit from each member, as well as the community of residents, to fill out the residential survey. If this committee feels it's appropriate, submitting either a letter or the form, the last form that Matt addressed, I think would be appropriate.
Thank you. There is a couple months. The deadline for the feedback isn't until the end of May, so.
Can you put the link in the meeting minutes so we can access it quickly?
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments on the Monroe County EMC? Probably just, John, for your benefit, there is a council of all municipalities in Monroe County that they're allowed to seat one person representing their conservation committees, planning committees. So it's just one from every municipality. And it meets monthly, has very often an educational topic as well as some business structure. So currently, I'm the representative for the Town of Penfield.
And separate from that, it is technically a public meeting, so other members from this committee can attend, they just wouldn't have a speaking role. So like if there's a presentation that anyone is interested in attending, they can go and watch it firsthand. That's definitely an option. If any of the committee members, as time goes on, wants to do that, we can also let them know ahead of time so that they have an idea of how many people are coming. Just, it's a courtesy from the town.
Are those meetings recorded?
They are not, but that's where me providing the notes and/or the minutes from the meeting does prove.
They just don't,
Thank you.
they don't have recording at the facility. That's
Yeah.
all.
Any other questions? Okay. Then next is our review of required items, starting with town development projects.
So there are none applicable at this time. And for reference, town development projects would pertain to development projects within the town, not by the town of Penfield, just for that difference. So there's none at this time for town development projects that are applicable.
Okay. Are there any requests from the town board?
There is one, and it's the review of EPOD code public hearing comments, but prior to that, I'll really quickly address the renewable energy systems code that we briefly touched upon. So at the last meeting, it was discussed that the town board was reviewing it. Subsequently, it has been approved by the town board, that draft, so that was then sent to the Secretary of State's office so that she could sign it. And then that now has been approved and is formally part of our local law. There is a copy of that on the town website. E-Code 360 can take up to a few months to be updated. We have reached out multiple times just to encourage that process to go faster. So it is clear for everyone listening and in the room, that means that the moratorium as well on residential ground-mounted solar and commercial solar has ended with the adoption of that code. So that moratorium is no longer in effect.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for your effort in that. You were a huge part of it.
Okay.
Subsequently, we can move on to the review of the EPOD code public hearing comments. This committee worked on multiple drafts of the EPOD code, and that a public hearing was held with the town board just last week? Yeah, just last week, right?
2/5?
Yes, it was last week.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was this
just
past
my dates.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
So just last week,
Wednesday.
subsequently, in that meeting, there were a few comments. Those are being brought to this committee for review, and so that this committee can submit a letter to the town board of any recommended changes or responses to those comments. This response will not go directly to any resident that made a comment at the meeting, because this is an advisory committee to the town board. All of our documentation like this goes directly to the town board, and the town board can choose what to do with it from there.
Okay, good. Okay, so I was able to attend the public hearing. I don't know if any of you did get a chance to go back and watch the transcript or the actual recording of it, but Matt's put together a draft letter for us and has given us a couple days to comment on it.
I
Yeah.
watched it.
So I haven't, I think I last checked this sometime around noon or maybe a little bit later than that, but so far the comments from the committee have been relatively minor word changes. I think so far I've accepted some of them, and other than that, just scanning through.
I think just the last one probably would have been my final response to your response on that one.
Okay, so,
Today at 2:32.
yeah, I'm seeing this one too, but,
Okay.
yeah, so looking at the fees, and we're still trying to clarify with taking the timber harvesting permit out of the EPOD code, what the new fee would be. I believe right now, my understanding is that the previous tree harvest permit was, the permit fee was essentially the EPOD fee. And so we're just trying to find what the approved fee would be for a timber harvest permit now that it's out of the EPOD code. So that's still being discussed internally with town staff. So Cynette's comments was just to, because there was one resident that was primarily concerned with these timber harvesting sections. And Cynette pointed out that we really haven't changed much in the actual wording from the tree harvest section that was in the code. We've just taken it out. And I noted that while the wording hasn't changed, pulling it out is a significant change, which is, I think, where this resident was coming from and why it was brought to their attention, because now we're no longer placing the tree harvest permitting requirements just for tree harvesting within an EPOD. It's anywhere in town. So this property owner or any property owner that wants to do timber harvesting on their property, it's not just a case of looking at where an EPOD is on their property. They have to get a permit regardless of if there's an EPOD or not. So it's widening the scope of the tree harvest, or the jurisdiction, I guess, of the tree harvest, the timber harvesting application procedures. So, and I guess I'll just go, so Cynette, your last comment was understood. My concern was quoting a reference document without referencing the document.
So that actually refers to the last comment. I realized afterwards that they weren't necessarily connected because they were in the same
Oh, so
section.
so
About-
comment number 7?
No, the one about C, if you kind of highlight
sure.
the woodland EPOD replacement.
Woodland EPOD replacement if occurring in a woodland EPOD, because we're referring to the replacement policy.
Yes. So I believe that we should mention the policy as that reference within there.
So do you feel that item number 4 that explains the mitigation as defined in the proposed woodland EPOD replacement policy, that number 5 needs to have it itself, even though it's in 4?
I would still say woodland EPOD policy or woodland EPOD replacement per the EPOD policy. You know, it's just the idea that it's separately stated there.
Well, to
And I'm
clarify,
just-
the woodland EPOD replacement policy isn't actually in the town code. It's a policy that it resides outside of the code.
So-
It's referenced in the code.
It's referenced in the code, and I
Sure.
kind of believe that for this letter. The only thing that I'm just concerned is somebody taking this and then somebody theoretically in a year changing the replacement code or the replacement policy to something different,
As
And
in
then-
like a different title?
as in a different value per tree, a different quantity of trees, a different maximum or minimum, something like that, and then it being called out and somebody thinking, okay, well, that was a statement, and now you're changing.
So would you feel in the same instance, when we refer to the EPOD permit price, we would need to refer to the fee schedule?
Either that, or as probably as the letter would just be able to say as of,
This date.
subject to change or something. I mean, I'm just worried, kind of worried about us referring to a EPOD replacement, very specifically $200 per tree, maximum of $5,000 per acre, without associating it directly to that replacement policy.
Do you think adding the currently proposed fees would cover that? Or do you still feel,
No, that would be fine.
okay.
Acknowledging that, once again, that this is a letter going back to the town board and not to that person making the comments directly.
Sure, so I'm fine either way. Realistically, because it's a dated letter to the town board, I think it's clear that we're going based on information that's as of that date, but I think this is a completely fine change.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for using some of the other words as well, so.
Yeah, I know, Pat, you had mentioned that
Oh,
you
this is
liked
fine.
believe, okay.
This is
Yeah,
fine. I think
okay.
maintains is a stronger.
Yeah, I think
word.
that and it also stands that that's the stance that we had before, and it's
Yeah.
what we're continuing to have. So are there any additional comments now, or do we feel?
So going back to the residents concerned about expanding the scope, how do we actually answer that?
So I just want to,
So it's twofold. One, part of his discussion, his items at the public hearing were cost and the concern about it costing too
So
much.
that's number 5.
And then the other part was that he was worried that there would be a secondary post-harvest inventory. So basically, they had to submit something after the harvest of what was removed and what's remaining. Number 6 addresses that and explaining that it doesn't have to be a separate inventory, that they ahead of time have to acknowledge which trees they are removing and which trees they are keeping.
I guess I should clarify, Roy, the resident didn't actually comment on the changing of the scope.
I didn't think so.
No, I only brought that up because in Cynette's comment, she was mentioning that the timber harvesting sections are virtually identical. And my understanding is that they're not, if you consider that removing it from the EPOD regulations is a significant change when you consider that the scope is changing from just EPOD to, so it's adjacent to the conversation of what the public hearing comments are, but it's not necessary to address that because that wasn't an actual public comment.
Okay, I'm with you.
That was more related just to my reaction when he made his comment, thinking, wait, but we didn't change that.
Yeah. but
So
we
then I
actually
was,
did.
but we actually
Yeah.
did in its context.
Gotcha, yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what Matt was kind of explaining. Well, yeah, yanking it out of the middle of the code and giving it a separate section is, in theory,
A change.
a very big change.
Yeah, because you can have 4.9 acres of trees and it not be part of an EPOD and then do timber harvesting on it. Previously, that wouldn't require a timber harvesting permit, whereas now it would, whether it's part of an EPOD or not.
Along those lines, Matt, did the town reach out to the individual from Ag and Markets who was referenced in the public comments?
Yes, so Yeah, so we reached out to the representative from New York Ag and Markets. Nope.
Is it Jeff Kehoe? Was that?
Yes, it
Yeah,
was, Jeff.
I think it was
Yeah.
Jeff Kehoe.
Jeff
Sorry.
Kehoe, yes.
Either one.
And Jason Drobnik, who's with, he's the private lands and forest utilization lead with New York State DEC. And so we're awaiting feedback from New York Ag and Markets. I don't think, I'll have to double check. I don't think I got a specific response back from the New York State DEC representative. But New York Ag and Markets clarified their statements and said that we are doing a interdepartmental review and will respond back. So essentially, New York Ag and Markets, their department is looking at it, and they will provide a response to the town. And I know that the town board mentioned they were interested in both those agencies' responses. So more information to follow, depending on their response. So.
Okay, I mean, I was surprised by, I mean, I thought it was a strong statement by Ag and Markets about what they were saying, so
Sure.
I think it should be taken seriously, to the extent that that's actually what they had stated to this individual.
Yes, so this is speaking to New York Ag and Markets' right to review this, and that the fees and just the permitting structure being an undue burden on farmers or any property owner of agricultural land within the ag district. And so, yes, so they are taking a look at it and essentially determining or reviewing whether or not the regulations for the timber harvest permit are seen as a undue burden in that application, so.
And my understanding of Jeff Kehoe's email was that he would actually be working in conjunction with Jason Drobnik. Yeah, Drobnik from the DEC, that they generally work together on these types of things.
With that in mind, I think overall the letter seemed fine to me. I do think referencing that town staff is working with Ag and Markets to address any, however we want to phrase it, I think referencing that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and consulting with DEC as well.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make mention that in regard to number 2, I have gotten a lot of feedback from residents who have the perception that the restrictions have really been lifted a great deal on woodland EPODs, and I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that that's definitely a perception of the public.
Have you been able to glean why that's the perception?
Yeah, like details on that.
I think that there are community organizations who have reviewed it and feel that, and have consulted other people to read it and got that perception from them as well. So,
Just to comment on that, I mean, there was the one public comment basically saying that there were concerns that it was less restrictive. I guess to me, in reviewing those public comments, it wasn't very specific, right? So it was hard to walk away with that and be like, well, we can take another look at that
Yeah, same.
without more specifics.
Right.
I mean, my personal view is I think it provides a level of clarity that was not there before that makes the code, frankly, stronger and easier to enforce. And so, you know, I'd be interested to hear some of those more concerns, but it's hard right now without more information.
Yeah. And I believe that when we started, we actually did some math on some of our previous projects, as well as looking where the impact would lie, you know, that realistically, with it being a 10% disturbance before, you know, to give a large property owner 10%, you know, gave them significant freedom to cut down trees, whereas now interpreting it as the half acre actually limits the ability for larger projects to cut down trees without getting a permit.
And also, didn't we, when we started out, there was some concerns that the previous code maybe couldn't be, and, if people are looking at it to be less restrictive, that we couldn't really enforce it because there were some of those concerns about possibilities of considering something a taking. And so maybe there, and in reality, it wasn't till the, I'm not sure which review it was. I think it was the one that Ari and Steve and I did, that it was the first time we were really following the code. Not the first time, but I mean that we were strictly adhering to the code, and that raised the issue of possibly a taking.
I believe it was a project before that.
The project before that one. It was, the
Roy.
two of us,
Yep.
okay.
But either, not here nor there, either way, yes, there was concern that the code could be considered a taking, and that is part of why they wanted the code to be clarified.
Yes.
And that is, and I still stand by the statement of, we have been working to clarify the code so that it is understandable and enforceable. So that means, ideally, that residents can understand the code, as well as developers or whoever else it's being applied to, and the town can enforce it. Both of those are important items.
Oh, I agree with that. I'm just saying that was part of,
But I can tell you,
if they're strictly looking at that difference.
and I would be surprised if every single resident that has any kind of concern about the EPOD code as it is right now reviewed every single EECC meeting to know that we've considered those things.
Right.
There was a public comment asking if we've worked with if we've contacted the DEC. If you've watched every single EECC meeting, you would know that we have. But that's not a reasonable expectation for every single resident. That's why we have a committee of residents doing this.
Yes.
And that's why we have a public hearing, so residents can ask those pertinent questions. So it's a twofold thing.
I would add one other thing, and it relates to our experience with that proposed dental office across, I forget the address, but it was on Creek Street.
Yep, just north of the gas station.
Right, just north of the gas station. And that project, as far as I understand it, we were reviewing it under the old code. But I know when we were doing that because it was my first experience going out there and evaluating these projects, I also looked at the current code and how that would compare. And I'll tell you, the outcome wouldn't have been any different. And so, to me, I think the code is clearer now and, in my view, stronger.
And part of our case studies that we went through at these committee meetings showed that smaller properties like that wouldn't have a major change between the codes. It's really the larger properties that are going to have the bigger change. And more often than not, if you have more property that's wooded, with the change to 0.5 acres rather than 10% of the EPOD, you will have to get a permit sooner with the draft as it is than the current code.
Right.
And that's part of why, at that point, this committee decided to move forward with that.
So Kevin, can I ask you a question? For number 2, you said you had quite a bit of sentiment around that. What would you suggest we change in the language to kind of address that sentiment? I think we do in that response, but is there anything specific that would help with that?
I am, and as far as the letter goes?
Yes.
As far as our response, yeah. Which goes back to the board.
And/or the code. If there's items that have been brought up to you pertaining to the code, I mean, it'd be helpful for this committee to know those items, whether it's from the town board or from residents.
I don't think that's something I can answer right now. I think I would need to get back to you folks, maybe via email.
Okay.
Great.
Sure.
And if there's residents that have any specifics, and they can, and the town board is accepting anything like that, if you can share that with us, I think that would be beneficial.
Okay.
I know that my understanding is that the public hearing is closed at this point, so I don't know how that type of comment goes through if it does.
Okay.
Can there ever be anything, some sort of an introductory statement somewheres that, this is the new, approved EPOD code, and just like a talking to people to read and
To help residents understand the code?
yeah, something along those lines, or would you even, I suppose it's opening a can of worms to say, you know, this is actually more restrictive in this way, or this is done because it's, you know, for the larger properties, to point, and this is done in this way to clarify it and be enforceable? I mean, sort of.
So I know that on the town website, Matt's working on pulling it up. On the town website, every time we have a local law amendment or anything similar, there is a description that actually explains why we're doing it and what's going on. So Matt just pulled that up and highlighted the main portion that I think speaks to your point.
Okay.
Separate from this, I don't think there's currently a precedent set for us to do what you're talking about. And I would always encourage residents that have concerns with the process or with if something is being included in the process or not, to attend the appropriate committee meetings so that they can be educated on what's going into that review. Or read the meeting minutes, just because, I mean, these committee meetings are an hour and a half long, for example. And the minutes define very specifically when we're talking about which topic. And I think they go into a good amount of detail in that regard. Or even just watch the snippets of the meeting that have that pertinent item.
So
No, I wasn't.
I was just going to ask, so to look at the, what's on the website, are our meetings attached below there when we've had those conversations? What is in that document and meeting video discussion
I haven't
section?
looked in a while.
So the meeting videos, yes,
Yes,
they
okay,
have
okay.
EECC meetings.
We've been at this one a long time.
Yeah.
We have, yeah.
We've had a lot of conversations about this
Yes.
EPOD load.
And you know what? It's worthwhile, so.
Yeah, so the links take you specifically to the actual YouTube
Segment?
video, and it'll
Okay.
take you to that section of the meeting.
Okay.
But it, yeah, it doesn't take you directly to the, or at least I should check to see. Yeah, it doesn't show the exact minutes, but obviously if you can track down the meeting, and then the minutes are obviously posted on the EECC's website if you'd rather
Or the
look at
webpage.
it that way. Sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh,
And Sarah, I was just going to say, no, I was not looking for anything other than that.
Oh, okay.
Maybe-
I didn't know if you wanted more than that, and that it'd be fine if you did, I just didn't know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Maybe what's missing is the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. You know, I mean, it's in the name, right? Environmental protection, right? But it's kind of, maybe this isn't meant for the code, but maybe this could be in the letter response, is like, what is the goal of what we're trying to do, of like protecting the environment, of preserving those trees. We're in agreement with the resident in terms of just, that's a really good goal. Anyway, I just feel like that might be missing from the letter.
I really think you're onto something there. That to develop an understanding that this committee, and with its goals, feels that this is a better document, you know, because I think there's an underlying concern that this may be more friendly to developers than the previous document was. And I don't know if there's a general understanding that there was such a high level of involvement by this committee in order to ensure that it was not lifting restrictions that shouldn't be lifted.
Absolutely.
And part of me also wonders that if the replacement policy really didn't get highlighted enough in the process of reviewing the EPOD, because to me, that is such a little piece that made such a difference for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe what we can do, I mean, we do reference the replacement policy in the letter. there wasn't, again, it's difficult to say if
There's no
that's
comments
the
on it.
issue. Right. So maybe we, in kind of the summary, where we add a paragraph here at the end that essentially, kind of reiterates the changes intend to update and clarify essentially what's written here, but with the addition that these changes are intended to encourage compliance by the town, residents, developers, that will ultimately lead to better
protections of those areas,
of our
yeah.
environmentally sensitive areas.
And this description could be changed. I mean, it occurs to me that when you get more feedback of what, it's hard to take a stab in the dark, as Steve is saying, to know how to respond to something without knowing what has triggered that thought process in the residents that are saying, oh, you're not being, you're being less restrictive. So in the learning of what words made them think that, and then how our response would be, we could include that in that paragraph, for instance, at a later time.
I mean, I think also including in the summary paragraph the acknowledgement of the woodland EPOD replacement policy would be valuable, because technically it's a separate document from the code. So if someone is just reviewing this draft code, they may not realize the implications of having a woodland replacement policy and everything that goes with that. So they may feel that taking out the details of really what's in that policy now, that not having that in the code, which the current code has some details on how you replace trees and what that ratio is and such, by acknowledging that in this letter, that might help residents as well as the town board. I don't know how much the town board shares this letter with the public, so I don't think they do. They would need to talk about that at a meeting, realistically, for them to be aware of that. But having that reference, I think, is important, because if you are just looking from the current code to the draft code, you would be, if I was just a resident and not know the interworkings of local government from my history, I might not think that there is a policy. But because of the way, because the enforcement of the policy is really a ministerial act, it's not something that is like front-facing to the public. And that could be something that's lost in communication.
In lieu of sending an email.
Sorry.
I can tell you that is the crux of it right there, that when you look at it, it looks like a lot of it was gutted because of that change.
Yeah, it didn't click to me till this discussion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I think that is the crux of it right there.
Yeah, it looks like we got rid of mitigation, but mitigation is there.
It's just, it's an internal policy that we follow rather than part of the town code, because it's truthfully in the workings of our offices more effective that way.
Would it be beneficial to have policies on the website in relation to the code? So it says, here's the code, here's the policy, here's the code, here's the policy.
I could see a
Is it
benefit in
there?
that. I don't know exactly how that works with a draft code.
Yeah, but once it's published.
Once it's published, it does go on the website. So like we have the sidewalk policy on the website.
So it is
We-
there, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what I wanted to
So it's there.
verify.
maybe they
It's
just,
there, and there's the red line version that highlights exactly where that change was added in.
It doesn't describe what that policy is, though.
yeah, I don't,
There's
my
no
impression
description.
is that residents might not understand
It's related.
the impact of that.
Sure, but I would think that anyone that came and spoke at the public hearing would have reviewed, I mean, maybe, I would hope that they looked at the marked up copy with changes, because again, we're trying to interpret how these people came into the public hearing and what, how they interpreted the relaxation of the Woodland EPOD code. I would think that it would have come from looking at the marked up copy with changes and seeing that there were large sections removed. And if they saw that, then hopefully they also noticed the addition of the language for the woodland EPOD replacement policy, because that is also highlighted since it's an added change.
I would agree with that hope, but I don't think that that is always a reasonable expectation. And not knowing what the background is for the people that made a comment, I don't think it's fair to make assumptions
Right.
either way, sorry.
Well, no, I guess it's kind of circling back to, we
Yeah.
don't know what their intentions were, why they are claiming that there are, we're removing protections for the woodland EPOD when they're not specifically citing. Like, we're assuming that it's because they didn't see that the woodland EPOD replacement policy is effectively replacing it. Maybe it's something else that they saw in the code. So I'm not sure if we really need to address this in the letter, if that's not even what
Well, I
they were
feel like,
concerned with.
as the comments were made, and I mean, the comment list that you have very definitely mirrors the comments that were made. And since we've addressed those in our letter very systematically, I believe that has to be our best effort in the response. I mean, we can't read between the lines. The first property owner we know was upset a bit because of the EPOD review of the property across the street from her, and so whether or not she looked at our new code and said, well, the same thing would have resulted, and therefore that's unsatisfactory. I mean, I don't know, why even kind of really mention that, but just the idea that it says we reviewed the red line documents, proposed changes weakened, we've answered that, you removed regulated activities, we've addressed that.
Do you feel, I agree with you. I do think that these individual comments address each item that was addressed as comments at the public hearing. Do you agree with Katie's previous sentiment of we should include in a summary paragraph at the end the intent of the draft code as this committee sees it?
I would love to do that. I mean, to me, is one of those things, like, I feel like we don't get to say. We don't get to say that. I mean,
Right.
specifically, as a team, it was a game changer for us when that woodland protection policy, or, replacement policy was put in as an offering. I mean, that was like significantly changed our ability to revise the code effectively. And I think that needs to come out, that's.
So then my understanding, and I'm just looking for confirmation so that Matt and I can put it together for you, is that we'll include a summary paragraph, basically summarizing these 5, 6 points. There's 6 items, I think, right? Sorry. The 6 bullet points. 7 bullet points.
7 bullet
Thank you
points.
for correcting me. Summarizing those bullet points, including our intent, the intent of the committee in the review and drafting of this code, with the specific call out of the woodland EPOD replacement policy and the benefits of that, even though it's a separate document.
I think that's important.
And then don't forget the mention of the conversations with the ag markets and the DEC.
Yeah, so I was going to add item 8 and essentially mention that those conversations are occurring and that we are awaiting feedback from those agencies.
And my remarks about the explanation on the website was more related to your remarks about, residents coming up in this general feeling. I mean, I understand that, well, we have the written response from the public hearing, but, would also be a concern to me to try to alleviate the feeling. I mean, we all know we've put our heart and soul into this for a long time, and it couldn't be further from the truth that we're trying to create a policy or a code that benefits, one we're just being fair.
We want
And
a
we're not
code that's equitable.
equitable. We're not leaning, one side, or the other, that, just, as you said, equitable, and trying to figure out, and so maybe that is what we need to do in, adjusting the paragraph. But my point is, if you can come up with more feedback, maybe that will lead us to what we could say. But yes, it doesn't have the spirit of what we were trying to do behind it. And maybe there's people that simply, like Cynette said earlier, just plain looked at the math and didn't get a special, run-through of the comparisons of it, of how it's not less.
Yep. Sorry.
No,
It's all right.
yeah,
I know it's.
agreed, yeah.
So I
agree
think,
with all of you.
for me, it was two different things. It's the, response to this, your letter to the town board on behalf of the public comments, and for me, I'm reacting in this paragraph on the website more to the comments that you're getting, so that your average person, that the people that are commenting to you may not have looked at all at any of our meeting notes.
Correct.
And just, they're, so if you can, if it's at all possible to share that with us or delve into that.
I think that I can pretty much provide that information now, and that is that, looking at the document on its face, you don't realize that a lot of that information is included in the replacement policy.
Okay.
And then just the whole idea of, looking at it and briefly doing the math and considering, maybe larger developments and how that would work out. So I do think that that's basically the crux of the situation, is that replacement policy being separated out. So.
And if you were using those discussion points to assure those residents, that their feeling is not the case, and that satisfies them, then we would know those are the things to put up front in such a paragraph, introductory paragraph, the one that's already in the website as far as expanding it.
So I will acknowledge the description on the website, and it's a fun spot that staff gets put in. The description is a factual description.
Okay.
So it is not our place to say what your intent is, unless we're writing a letter and you are
Okay.
signing, like we're signing it on your behalf with your approval.
You can't change it after the fact, the meeting already occurred.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
So
was for the
we're
public
not
hearing.
at the point where we can change that. Generally, what occurs is if there's a public hearing and there are comments that someone might be concerned that something is not doing something they want it to do, and the town board feels that it is, as part of their resolution, if and when they approve something, they would cite that as an item for why they're approving it. So in this case, if the town board, because I don't speak for them, if the town board feels that this document, the draft EPOD code, does make the permitting process more equitable between large and small properties, they would acknowledge that. If they felt that this EPOD code as written ensures better protections for EPODs in town, they would acknowledge that, and as to why they feel that is there. That would be part of the resolution. So those would be items that the town board would generally cite at
Okay.
a work session meeting. And then the staff takes those and puts it into a resolution for them. They review the resolution, provide any recommended changes, the staff does the updates, and then they either approve or deny one. So we don't, as staff members, get to kind of give that intent, because our
Okay.
intent is to be factual and provide technical information. We don't, it's not our place to have a bias
understand.
or an
Okay.
opinion in it.
I mean, I just feel like as a group, hopefully it was very clear that we did not want trees chopped down. period. I think all of us had a choice. We would never, ever allow a tree to get chopped down, ever, and we would want all the dead ones to remain standing in place. Like we're just, that's, I mean, I think as a goal, but that was not the goal of the code. And I think we met that balance between protecting wooded areas as well as allowing reasonable development.
That is my interpretation of all of the meetings we have had, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect every single resident that might be commenting at a public hearing to know all of the background like you guys do. So that's a hard thing to balance.
Would it be helpful to provide examples of how this would benefit? You know, like you said, a larger development, here's an example with the old code, here's the example with the new code, just to show, I don't know, like sometimes black and white.
I would
pictures
refer
are-
that question to Kevin as a town board member.
Yeah, I don't want to
because
put more
that's where
work
this
on
is going
anyone, but
to.
just,
I mean, I can tell you we have those samples from when we did our case studies. Matt put them together.
Because Kevin, I don't actually recall the resident who made these comments mentioning that with these proposed changes, it wouldn't have changed the development. My interpretation, and we could do a side-by-side example of how the new code would have changed, because right now, the development that is across the street from that resident, the developer wasn't required to do any mitigation because they stayed underneath the 10%. However, with the new code, they would have disturbed more than half an acre, and mitigation would have been required, which may have prevented the development if the developer didn't want to adhere to, or they just couldn't afford the mitigation. So effectively, this new code is more protective in that particular project. So I don't know if that would be a communication, or if that was a direct comment, because I didn't get that.
No,
but-
no, they didn't, she didn't say that. She just said, by
But
the
is that-
way.
But essentially what we're looking for is examples like that, where we have this project coming in, and the old code, you know, would have required this or wouldn't have required mitigation, and the new code, it would be applied in this sense. Is that kind of?
yeah, that's exactly it, just to
Okay.
show people an example, like this new,
But
This
not in the
new-
letter, though.
no, I'm
No.
just
I
thinking
think
in-
maybe
in a
just
public setting
make
or in
it
a-
your knowledge that that would be available if you believe the town board would like to see those examples.
And that's something that if the town board wants to see those samples, staff can provide. That's not something that has to come to this committee and the committee puts together the examples. Staff can
Yeah.
provide those examples.
Because they did it for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But yes, I can, because we have a summary of the comments that was provided to this committee, I can specifically address that that resident had said that proposed changes weaken the EPOD protections, particularly woodland EPOD. They're not keeping with protecting areas. They decrease the types of regulated activities, and they felt if the protections are weakened to such an extent, why does the town need EPODs? So those items, I believe, are addressed in this letter.
Yes.
I would like to make a request that those examples be provided to the board.
So I see two things going on here. We've got the response letter, which I think is defined the way it is, and I'm be ready to vote on it right now. And then we've got the sentiment issue, example issue, potentially that could live on a website somewhere on our website if we wanted to, and talk about, you know, what we did and why we did it. I personally don't want to do that. I think it's going to open up, you know, some sort
The
of.
can of worms that I
I'm not
mentioned
thinking for
earlier.
the website, but just as a response, especially to residents that are like, well, this weakens the EPOD code.
But we
Like, it
don't- so
doesn't.
We don't respond to residents.
We don't
so-
respond.
No, I
residents
I
and-
know we don't, but I'm saying, you know, to have available.
I think that the appropriate path with that would be that, specifically because Kevin's requesting it as a town board member, but also any of the town board members could, that item would go to the town board, and then as the town board members have their constituents reach out to them and say these things, that say that the proposed changes weaken the EPOD protections. Well, the town board members then can go, well, here's an example of how it doesn't do that.
That's what, yeah. that's
Talking
exactly
points
what
for
I'm
them.
getting at.
And that is a town board member's job.
Right. And the town board member has already made the request.
Yeah.
To me,
It's
that's a
probably,
good
and
point.
it's a part of the toolkit that you wish you had. So I think it's very definitely a good thing to do.
Yeah. And I think the sentiment piece, I don't think needs, you can add the sentiment at the end of the paragraph to the
Yep.
town board. Is there another sentiment piece that needs to be done somewhere else? I personally don't think so. I think we've made our sentiment clear. We want to protect property. People own their property. We can't tell them they can't not do stuff with their property. If they are going to do it and it happens to be an EPOD that's wooded, you have to follow a permit requirement, and you have to mitigate if you're disturbing more than a half an acre.
Yep.
We made that clear.
Yep. And I think you did even include the discussion on us eliminating the potential for phasing activities in the letter. So I did appreciate that being in there, because I also feel that that's substantial,
I
that we
feel it-
took away the loopholes.
It
was huge.
strengthens the
Yeah.
code.
Yes.
That was
That's
my-
where I feel like the strongest sentiment is. I mean, the resident sentiment was that we're removing protections, and we respond to that directly and too by saying that we don't interpret this as a decrease in protections. We think that it's strengthening the code. I mean, those words, strengthening the code, isn't expressly there, but we say that the proposed changes expressly prohibit a loophole that would have led to increased disturbances or unregulated disturbances to the EPODs.
And we put it that way rather than saying strengthening or weakening the code, because that is more of an opinion and less of a factual or technical item.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Are we at a point where do we need to vote on the letter, or just?
So we can do it two ways. I would recommend do you think we need a vote? Or just a general consensus? I think we just need a general consensus.
I don't see an issue of, because I understand that there are still conditions that we need to add into this. You know, we need to add that item 8 that says that we have had conversations or we're in conversations with Ag and Markets and the DEC, and I guess beyond that, because are we looking at?
The summary paragraph,
Summary
and then
paragraph.
separately, we will provide examples to the town board. So for this document, just those two items need to be added. Where I say we could do one of two things. I would either recommend the committee can acknowledge their support of this document and ask staff to draft those two additions, and then either we can email that out to the committee, get their approval before sending it to the town board, or we can bring it up to the next meeting, understanding that the next meeting is in March.
Yeah, I don't believe there's a need for us to wait to the next meeting before getting the letter available, so,
Does
just
any-
because it delays the opportunity
Yeah,
for the town board
The sooner
to,
the better, I think.
yeah.
I would like to look at the last version. You said that was,
An
we could
option.
sign off.
Yes.
So my recommendation, based on current discussion, would be that Matt and I would draft the additions to this letter, provide this letter back to the committee members, and give you, I don't know, some kind of deadline to let us know whether you're for or against those changes or have modifications in an email.
That's fair.
That's
That's good
fine.
for
I think
me. And I
that's
think,
good.
I like the proposal of not necessarily needing an affirmative sign-off, that will
Okay.
be interpreted as a sign-off.
Okay, well, can we actually make it so that each of you, when you receive the letter, will review the document and respond affirmatively or negatively, so that it's very clear to them that the review has happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of what I mean. We would give you like a time frame to respond. Generally, when we've done that in the past, I think it's like a week. And if someone hasn't responded by that time frame, we make a phone call. So we try to get something from
You know
everybody.
where we live.
Poor Roy and his travel schedule.
I respond.
He does.
He does respond.
I can say the current committee members have generally responded very timely to our emails. So, thank you.
Okay.
Then we will move forward with that. We'll make the two additions we discussed. And I think if everyone's comfortable at this time, we can move forward in our agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that, Matt. Thank you for listening to all of our comments. Then next on our list is clean energy community actions.
I can address that, and I'd love to have Katie do a little bit of a plug again after I address it. Do you mind?
to.
Okay. We are continuing working on the community campaigns with Color Penfield Green. There are some classes coming up, which is the plug I'll have Katie do after I do my little intro. It is my understanding that the classes will not be presented over the summer, so we'll have classes throughout the spring, and then we'll plan to have classes again in the fall, but just due to some scheduling over the summer, it didn't work out. Separate from that, with the Clean Energy Communities program, I have addressed previously that we're waiting for a new pond to come out. That is a program opportunity notice. So technically, as of November 7th, 2024, the NYSERDA has stopped accepting new high-impact action items, or new high-impact actions. So we currently, with our community campaigns, have already submitted a scoping document, have already gotten approval to be working on that high-impact action. However, we are not at a place where we can submit any additional documentation for that high-impact action item until the new pond comes out. Currently, there is not a date for the new pond to come out. So we have been advised by our Clean Energy Community Coordinator to continue what we're doing for the high-impact action item that we're already taking. And then if the town ends up taking additional potential high-impact action items, for instance, we plan on installing more charging stations in town. With the current pond, that would be included as a high-impact action item. They recommend we continue doing those things as we plan, and save the documentation so that if and when a new pond comes out, we can submit it for a formal high-impact action.
Do they expire? Like, is there a certain time frame where it drops off?
It's a little complicated right now. Technically, each pond that has come out, there's been 3 already, has like a start date for when actions technically are included. It's my understanding, there's no formal documentation on it, but it's my understanding at this time that the goal of the next pond is to include this limbo period between ponds. Realistically, the town's moving forward with installing these charging stations either way because we got grant money for it. So there is a time frame in the use of that grant money, and we're going to take the action that we were approved for either way, whether we get Clean Energy Community action points or not.
Okay.
So it's my understanding at this time that the town board is happy with the town continuing our sustainability efforts, whether we get to wave a flag or not.
That's good.
Katie, please give your wonderful plug.
Sure. Thank you. So Color Penfield Green is running a 4-part energy series, but parts 2 and 3 are the clean energy campaigns that we're partnering with the town on. The first, part 2, is Clean Heat, Cool Savings, and it talks about the benefits of heat pumps, installing heat pumps. We are really close to winning the second grant, so if you are thinking about installing a heat pump, you don't have to attend the class. Just reach out to the town. Maybe you can pull up that website at some point, but and submit your contract information. We're really close, and the town will do some great work on that. The second class is, that class, Thursday, May 15th. You can take it at 3 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and it will be in person or on Zoom. Part 3 is EVs 101, Your Guide to Electric Vehicles, and that is Thursday, May 22nd. Again, either 3 or 7, it's free, and we're also encouraging folks to attend the EV car show, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later.
And the Arbor Day Celebration.
Yes.
In conjunction.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. And just so you noticed that officially on the agenda, the community campaigns are listed up there under the Clean Energy Community Actions, just to make sure that we give them their due amount of time to present. Meanwhile, I do want to know, we had mentioned during our planning call about talking about the changes to wetland mapping. Do we want to go back as far as your revisions to the EPOD code based on that, or talk about that at another time?
Maybe I thought we would bring that up in new business.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay, then that leads, is there anything else related to clean energy community?
I just wanted to show that this is the website, so this is under, I mean, you can find it on the EECC website. There's a tab on the side for Clean Energy Campaign, and if you scroll down, Energy Campaign submission form, just require your full name, zip code, email, phone number, residency, and all these items here for whether it's for the heating and cooling or electric vehicle campaign, purchase date, all these items. But
And with that, the submission items for those would either be if you've purchased a new EV, not leased or purchased
Or
used.
hybrid.
It has to be a new EV or a heat pump, had a heat pump purchased and installed in your house and/or small business. Then you can submit the documentation of those purchases / installations. You can do that through the town website, or you can email engineer@penfield.org.
And a heat pump water heater also counts.
Heat pump, water heater, geothermal system, any type of heat pump in your house.
So the EV's got to be new, can't be used,
It does.
and the heat pump install has to be by a contractor, not self-installed.
That's correct.
Okay.
And there's details on page 37 of the recreational brochure.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for showing that. It's always great to show our website and all the great stuff we're doing. Okay, then we will move forward to old business and talk about the Arbor Day celebration.
Great. So for anyone new to hearing about the Arbor Day celebration, that will be April 26th. It's a Saturday in April. It's actually the day after Arbor Day. The town is working in conjunction with Color Penfield Green and the Electric Vehicle Show, which will be at the community center on April 26th. This committee will be giving out tree saplings. Those range from, I believe it was, I don't have my note. It was, I think, 12 inches to 24 inches, depending on the sapling. So these are not full-grown trees, but they are tree saplings. There are 3 different types. That was the red bud, the
red maple
red maple, and
the white spruce.
White spruce, thank you. So we'll have 50 of the red bud, 50 of the red maple, and 100 of the white spruce to give out to residents. And that would be to come to our table, and we'll hand those out to you with some planting instructions. Separate from the event in general, with the planning of the event, we are doing signs again this year and have started the process for getting those. We will be doing social media information or posts. And then we ask that as many committee members that can attend as possible would be in attendance. Generally, Matt and I would attend this event and help host it, but we have a couple prior commitments that don't make us available for that this year. So we will be having 1 to 2 other staff members at minimum. Amy Owens, who has previously attended the Monroe County Environmental Management Council meeting for us. She's the junior engineer for the town. She will be the main host, and then I believe another staff member will help participate as well.
Are they going to make sure you have tie downs for the tents or something?
We have requested
canopies?
something like that. I don't think that the town has enough to provide for everybody that might have a tent at the event. But it is my understanding that the community room is also reserved, so that if there are any weather-related concerns, that we can have some tabling inside.
Yeah, we'll probably make that call a little bit sooner this year.
Yeah, before a tent rolls over another tent. Yeah. With that, at the Arbor Day Celebration and Electric Vehicle Show, there will be a proclamation by the town supervisor pertaining to our Arbor Day celebration and the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, as that is also a requirement for Tree City USA, which I can actually officially now tell you that we've been approved for this week.
Great.
Yeah,
That's great to
right.
hear.
Yay.
Sorry, I just got that yesterday.
And that means what? We have, will be listed on the website for Tree City.
We will be listed on the website for Tree City, and we are eligible for some specific grants, one of which I'm actually looking at to use for plantings for the Arbor Day celebration.
Right.
And separate from that, we're also, in conjunction with the Arbor Day celebration, planting 6 red maples at Rothfuss Park. We try to plant some full-grown trees every year. Well, it depends what you consider full-grown. 2-inch caliper, 6 to 8 foot trees.
It's pretty.
And we're seeing if we can get a grant to do some more of a different variety.
Oh, good.
Great.
So we have a poster of some sort that we could display at our table that we're now Tree City USA?
I just found out yesterday, but probably.
I'm just saying, it's something that.
In your spare time.
No, yeah, well, I'm not a graphic, although I do know a graphic artist. but
I can work with our communications team and sort through that.
I just thought it would be good to always promote
I just want a little
the good
seal on the
things.
website. I'm not actually asking for much. Is there
I
a-
literally just got the information yesterday. I
T-shirt.
haven't even got an
T-shirt.
email from the Arbor Day Foundation, but on their website, it says that we were approved, so.
That's cool.
I just
You-
thought
you were
this committee
trolling the
would want to
website.
know.
That's impressive.
And I just really wanted to be the one
Yes,
to
I'm
tell you.
asking for the world here. You can ask for the little thing on the website. I want a poster.
I think that's definitely worth considering, and I'm happy to talk to the communications team.
I would add too that I also like it when I drive into a town and I see it like on their signs when you enter the town, like Tree City.
Well,
Like
that's
we're
a little-
competing with where life is worth living
Full tilt.
That's
north
a
of
little
here.
more
I thought you were high
expensive
maintenance.
I
and
know.
technically
Yeah.
more difficult, but I can make the request.
Please.
Hey, see, now my poster request doesn't seem so lofty anymore.
It's not as bougie.
We might have to find grant money to cover the signage
Right.
change, though, so that would be.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that
That's a great
Arbor Day
idea, though.
provides those signs. So
I'm
it-
sorry, what's
it-
that?
Arbor Day provides those.
We believe.
Well, that's my understanding, but we'll look into that, and hopefully, if that's the case, then
Sure.
we'll provide the signages.
We'll do what we
the
can
signs
to
where
make
they-
that happen.
Yeah.
Very
Arbor
good.
Day provides a sign that says we're
Perhaps.
Tree City?
Perhaps.
So if we're specifically talking about the street signs, not necessarily a poster, but
Okay.
I was under the understanding of talking with other Tree City USA communities that they provide the street signs. I don't know how many, or if we're able to just request. So yeah, it will be something that, I mean, again,
Worst
we haven't
case-
even gotten official communication from them. It's just on their websites.
Yes,
They just
yeah.
formally approved it, so.
So yes,
Very
in due
good.
time, we will have more information about signage.
I'm hoping to be at our next meeting, but in case I couldn't, I wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Very good. That's fine.
great.
Thank you.
Excellent news.
Thank you.
If somebody else shares it with us, we'll be excited as well.
Yeah, I'm just excited.
Is there any other information anybody needs on the Arbor Day celebration? Okay, we'll move into the EECC progress document. We had to hopefully theoretically check something else off our box, but not quite, which would have been the EPOD code, but I guess we have to wait a bit still, don't we?
At this time, yes.
Yes.
I like your response to me. I figured you do, but
Yeah, so for anyone that's not aware, in the process of creating an agenda for each of these items, Matt and I review the items that we've added to the agenda, determine if all of them are still relevant or should be on the agenda, and then we say, is there going to be enough time for a presenter? And the answer just keeps being no right now.
Yes. And we do discuss it during the planning meeting.
And
yeah,
I've
that's-
realized I should have put the caveat in there that it's like, not that we've had time to do it.
Yes.
And that's fine, and like, we weren't offended by your question, it's relevant.
Oh, no, I didn't, I should have gone in and made a comment, or just, because I don't know that it belongs in this spot with the progress document. We, as I recall, we do have a town flower. Didn't somebody check that through?
Yes.
Historian said we
Yeah.
have it, but it's not necessarily a native pollinator, and so am I correct, and the thought was that we would not obliterate the town flower that we already have from the listing of our town flower, but add a second that's a native pollinator town flower?
We have discussed that in the past. As far as I know, there hasn't been a group that's taken on that task at this point.
Right.
I believe when we talked about having a native town flower, or a town native flower, however you would put it, that we discussed potentially doing some kind of social media campaign. And it's my understanding that there has not been a staff member at this time that has a reduced workload to
Okay,
take on that rather large project.
right.
Yeah.
Similar to when we established the town tree as the red maple, it was, quite a big thing. So I understand that, but I'm just in terms of, having it on our list.
Yeah, I mean, and it is on our list as a discussion topic, and I think at this point, it should stay there.
Okay.
I mean, with the committee members, just going back to Pat's point of a speaker present, how, I believe it's December, we had the opportunity for the committee members to go to the seeker training. Is it more in line that maybe if we know that we won't have time during our meetings to have a speaker, that we offer more opportunities to have training or speakers, outside of meeting times, similar to the seeker training?
Or is your intent more along the lines of having a speaker at this meeting so that it benefits the committee as well as residents?
Yeah.
That
that's
was
a-
the
sure, it's
original thought
Okay.
when the old Conservation Committee instituted that. It was teaching ourselves, or learning ourselves, but also the residents.
Okay.
And I think just this committee, the EECC, is relatively new. It's only been technically around for a couple of years, and we have just had such a full workload with the different code revisions that's just what's been preventing us from having speakers.
What's the next big thing on our list, our progress document?
It wasn't a complaint, just to say, to add that sort of thought. I don't know if it belongs on the, on the progress document, but just not to lose sight of that, that's all. Because I wasn't
I think
aware of
that
your,
that's really-
I had not been aware of your conversations, so.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can discuss the formatting of this so that it's not just a, bulleted item of town flower. If it would, be a link to another document that would show any progress we've made on that specific topic. Or if we can just move town flower to a definitive goal where it is to have some sort of
Oh, I thought you were
campaign.
talking about speakers.
I was talking about speakers,
Or-
but you
So we
can.
do have a document for our speakers. I don't
Yeah.
remember if that's on the Google Drive, though.
Yeah, if it's not.
We
I
had
can-
at one time
yeah.
possible. But going back to the town flower, just to, not lose sight, we're a native town native,
Sure.
but however, we want
Sure.
to call it. So not lose the little bit of the background to it, but,
Yeah, I guess that was more of
So
what I was
both things.
responding to, is that whether any one of these discussion topics, if there's any, while it's not completed, there has been some discussion or action made towards that topic. So if we can have some sort of other document that tracks that.
That's
or
true.
Another level of, in this document that shows.
in other words, you can click on it and see what the discussion has been.
Sure, yeah.
Well, that's more work for you.
Well, but it's.
Part of our jobs.
Yeah, and it saves, the time of.
Repeating it all the time.
Well, right, and, you can just go to the document and it has all the topic information, all that, rather than it, coming up here during the meeting.
And that might give some background to any new members,
Yeah.
although we hope all of you stay
Yes, yes, please.
It might vote as membership changes.
Yes. So go to Roy's question here. So I do see the note for town sustainability code. So in addition to the res code and the EPOD code, what else is considered town sustainability code?
So we can actually, and I thought I went in, I'm sorry. Technically, the town sustainability code was what we were drafting and became the town renewable energy
Okay.
systems code.
Okay.
So prior to it being called,
We have a chapter
Oh, thank you.
110,
Sorry.
environmental sustainability.
Can you make that a little bigger?
Sure.
so originally, when town sustainability code was put on this progress document, that's what we are now referring to as the renewable energy systems
Okay.
code.
Okay.
The environmental sustainability code or chapter within the town code currently only addresses community choice aggregation because that is the local law that allowed the town to have a community choice aggregation program in the first place.
Okay.
So it's just the enabling law. At this time, I have not been given direction of any other items to add to the environmental sustainability section of the code. So if that comes up, we'll do that. But that is my mistake in not updating the document to
Okay.
reflect the proper
So should we
designation.
cross that one into the
I think we
complete
can bring,
list?
yeah,
Can move that one into.
And rename it because it's not what it is anymore?
yeah, yeah. So
And, I mean, are we looking to, or yeah, I guess that if we're feeling that we're just crossing it off with the understanding that that was the only item that we wanted for the renewable energy systems, or?
No, I think there's two things. I think
Sure.
what Sarah said, that originally that was in there because it was the energy code. So I
Sure.
think we moved that to the,
Yeah, that's down there
Yeah.
already
Yeah, so
in the
that
completed
is
goals.
adopt the new renewable energy systems code is in completed
Okay.
goals.
Right.
Yeah, so then I think I think it needs to stay, because we might want to add some stuff to this sustainability code. I don't know what would be next, but yeah, I think we should keep it then.
And does everybody understand the reason why renewable energy systems wasn't just put into the environmental sustainability code is because renewable energy systems, that entire code fit better into the zoning code because it clearly lays out zoning regulations for those systems. So
that's why
as
it
we,
was there.
if you think of, oh, we should have a code that pertains to environmental sustainability, take into account that there may be other chapters of the code that it may not fit directly into environmental sustainability, but it would be, a better fit for another portion of the code. But
So
again,
with that, my recommendation for this line item, town sustainability code, would be to change it to sustainability-related town code. And that way, if something
Yeah.
comes up, that's,
Fits somewhere else, then it's fine, yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
And sorry for not updating that before.
What is the reference to identification and preservation of ecologically biodiverse habitats?
That was a conversation, is that in the
At the
discussion
top of
topics?
discussion
I think
topics.
these are topics that we have had on our agenda.
Okay.
At some point in time, or wanted to have on our agenda. So I think we did have a speaker come in and talk a bit about plantings for us, right? Things that would have been, I guess that was invasive species and.
Yeah. So I know EECC, the advisory committee prior to this, had a speaker come in for invasive species. I truthfully don't know what the identification and preservation of ecologically biodiverse habitats
I
was
remember.
added for the intent. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, so I think the idea behind that is, if you think about what the EPOD code is, it's not really designed to preserve those ecological biodiverse habitats. It's designed to provide guidance if you're going to disturb a woodland EPOD, for example, or a steep slope, those sorts of things. But related to it, though, is there an opportunity in the town where there are areas that are sensitive? Do we know what those are currently, which we don't necessarily, but once we do identify those, how can we preserve those areas, either through the town purchasing them or, some other method to actually preserve versus just putting it as part of a traditional woodland EPAD. So the idea was that how can we identify those areas and preserve them?
Like a forever wild area?
Like that, but like the town bought, certain pieces of land because, they had the opportunity to do so, and now those lands are turned into parks or preserved. And so we do the same sort of thing with potentially diverse areas or, areas that are potentially ecologically sensitive.
So the committee members can correct me if you disagree. I think that might be an applicable item to consider in a climate action plan.
Town forestry plan, climate action plan?
Yeah, either of those types of things. I don't think that it would go into the town code unless there's some regulations that are added with that. But I think that's a relevant discussion topic. I think we should also add definitive goals to have climate action plan and forestry plan.
Yes, I agree with that. I was going to,
Yeah, and I would say the identification and preservation of ecological biodiverse habitats is not related to town code at all.
Great. I just want to make sure I was on the right page. Okay.
But it's
Yeah.
more about, as a committee, can we figure out where those things are and then work to preserve them?
yeah.
I can tell you separately that as grants have become available for that type of thing, the town has been pursuing grants for land purchase for conservation.
Does the active transportation plan, is there overlap with the EECC?
Nope. The active transportation plan will have overlap with the transportation committee.
I'm sorry, what was that again, sir?
An active
The active
transportation.
transportation plan will have overlap with the transportation committee, which meets next Tuesday. I'll be there if you want to attend.
Like same time, same place kind of committee?
Pretty similar, actually. 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. the third Tuesday of every month.
For the climate action plan, how does the Monroe County Climate Action Plan,
So we're at the 4-minute mark. I believe that is something we need to take up at our next meeting if we want to do that.
Well, could it be
think it'd
added?
Great.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead. No, I missed what you said.
Well, I'm sorry for jumping in. I did want to return to your comment, Katie, about the transportation plan, which I'm not familiar with, but at least it seems to me I could see some overlap between the Transportation Committee and EECC wanting to chime in on that at some point along the road. No pun intended.
At this point, I have been advised that the Transportation Committee would be the liaison committee or advisory committee that the town board has previously requested. And that I expect, I know for a fact, there will be public information meetings where the public can provide comments. I know that there will be tabling events that the public can provide comments. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is a similar website to the county's website for their active transportation plan where residents can provide comments.
Well, as a committee, I think we might consider submitting comments together. That's my,
I can tell you that it is not the objective of this committee unless that is a request by the town board.
they're telling us we can't.
I'm telling you the
Can we as
factual information
residents?
that I have.
you can, yeah.
You absolutely can.
Right, we can, personally.
But
Personally, yeah.
not as a committee.
Not as a committee.
Right.
Okay. Okay, now with 3 minutes left.
So not to rush you, we can discuss the climate action plan in more details and the current expectations. We're working on an RFP at this time for a consultant for that.
Okay. As well as the forestry plan, is that still on the radar?
The forestry plan does not currently have a budget, so the goal is to have that in the budget next year.
Okay.
And that will be determined June this year.
Okay.
So that ideally we'll trade places with either active transportation plan or climate action plan in our budget.
Okay.
And as we've discussed previously, we do have climate action plan money in our budget, as well as we're receiving a grant for that to help support that.
Is there any work that would need to be done on forestry plan with the idea that budget money in the following year?
So
Preliminary work?
We're in the process of getting some ideas of what the budget should consider, and there's actually a committee member here that I'd like to discuss that with at a later date,
Okay.
just because of their private experience.
Okay, we have a couple minutes. Have we reviewed everything? Oh, so the only missing item from there that we did not really get to talk about was just a reminder to anybody listening that they can indeed still order trees and shrubs through March 7th.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so just highlighting those events that we have the Conservation Tree and Shrub Program, March 7th at 4 p.m. Those are for any resident can place that order. And then obviously highlighting the Arbor Day Celebration EV Car Show, April 26th. We already mentioned the Clean Heat, Cool Savings, May 15th. Community campaign event, and where to register for that through the rec catalog, and then the EVs 101 class, May 22nd, 3 p.m. and 7 p.m.
And I believe there's a correction, that's actually just 7 p.m. now,
Yes.
right?
Oh, wait, for what?
Wasn't the EV class, EV 101, just moved to 7 p.m.?
Oh, that was based on attendance for this past session, so we'll
Oh,
try to run it
sorry,
again
I
for 3 and
apologize.
7.
Great, thank you for that clarification.
Good. Okay, given the timing, I think at this point in time, it might just be appropriate to shuffle anything else to the next meeting. I don't know if there's people beating down the doors, or if we do have a couple minutes.
One brief other new business item
Okay, go for
for the Renewable Energy Systems Code. In order for it to be effectively, because there were changes that we submitted or that are highlighted in the code to or requirements within our code for the town's design spec. That's the design and construction specifications specific to decommissioning plans. And I know that this committee was very supportive of having decommissioning plans, especially for those large-scale energy systems. Any change to the design and construction specifications requires town board approval. And originally, we were looking at doing a very large and wholesale revisioning of the design spec. But instead of doing that, we feel that initially we want to specifically have an addendum to the design spec that would require not just the decommissioning plan, but also a decommissioning fund that a developer of a large-scale renewable energy system would pay into to provide that security for the decommissioning to occur.
So that fund is similar to a wireless communication tower. Will have a decommissioning bond on file as soon as they get approval for that, or shortly after the approval process prior to construction. Okay. So that is to ensure that these types of things have the funds to be removed when it is time to remove them, and have a plan to be removed in the most ideally ecologically friendly way. So what Matt is explaining is that our original intent was to do that as part of the whole overhaul of the design spec. Because we recognize with the approval of the local law, now people can come in for these large-scale projects. We do not currently have the definitive regulations or guidelines for the decommissioning plan, and we'd like that to be included. Okay. So it's going to be a two-step process. What we've started the process of is to have the addendum put together and have the town board approve an addendum separate from the entire overhaul of the design spec, so that there is something showing guidelines for this, so that we are in the process of working with the town board to have completed and have a resolution so that can move forward. that's the big item that you need to be aware of right now. Separate from that, we will continue to do an overhaul of the entire design spec, including a decommissioning plan if that's necessary to make any changes at a later date.
So what do you need from us?
I was gonna
We
say,
don't need anything from you right now.
It's more of just
But
a
we want-
notification, especially because the draft we're working on hasn't even gone to the town board yet. So that's a reason why we can't explicitly share it with you now. But just in all, there's that notification. The notification as well is that we will be working on the broader updates, which, depending on whether or not the town, because ultimately it's the town board that would approve that, those larger changes. If the town board, asks for EECC to review it, that would be the time for you to review all of those changes.
So is this design spec something that's outside of the RES code?
Yes.
Yes, and it
Okay, so
applies to all
So the
development.
code is kind of the law, and then the design specs are
It's
maybe how you do it?
Administrative guidelines
Okay.
and specifications. I believe Ari had a
Yeah,
specific
so
question.
the decommissioning plan is a great idea. The fund, the only thing that I see a concern, or maybe not a concern, but more just to think about, is a lot of the solar companies will come in, they'll construct, they'll provide the decommissioning plan, but then they sell it to another company
So
Before it's funded?
sometimes.
the fund is normally a bond or a letter of credit with a bank. And
With the firm that currently is building
Yes,
it, so
and-
then they're
and
going to have to consider to carry those
as,
costs.
so
going
so
into this.
we have situations like that already for other letters of credit and bonds with the town. The process with that is that if there's a new owner, then for the original bond to be replaced, that new owner has to have their own put in place.
Okay.
And that generally, in this regard, in this circumstance, I can explain for wireless communication towers, because that's the most common one. Generally, in the contract, the private contract, they will have that as part of the requirement, because they know that that's part of the requirement for the town for them to get their money back.
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So we didn't want, depending on the timeline of this process, we didn't want you as a committee to hear separately that this is going on, for one, but also it's relevant to you, and we want you to be aware of it going through that process.
Do we get to review the decommissioning plan?
Ideally, at some, I
would love to.
I think at some point you might get to review the guidelines.
Okay.
I don't expect that this committee will be expected to review the actual plans when they come in. I think that'll be a staff job.
Engineering, yeah.
Just because of the timing and meetings. So I know that brought us over our time. Thank you for your patience with that. We felt it was very important to make you aware.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the order that needs to be brought up now? Okay. So then knowing that, I adjourn the meeting this meeting is adjourned as of 6:07, the Thursday, February 13th, Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee.